Nice. Let me see. Basically, it should work now. Doing that right now. Let's see. I have a teaming key. I don't see anything, but I think that's supposed to be because I'm not sharing anything. Ah, thank you. I'll be going to mute now, waiting for the speakers to arrive so they can sound check as well. The audio is working, and basically you should also see a screen. So I did get a warning of stream health that apparently we have a low bitrate. No idea how I can change it, but please let me know if the screen is yeah, looking fine or not. Thank you. That's good enough for a start. I hope it stays the same when a video is being moved, but perhaps the bitrate is varying based on how much of the screen is changing. And of course, it's static now, so perhaps a low bitrate because of that. Might be a false positive. First time we're actually using this setup, streaming directly from Zoom rather than through a recording rig specialized for this purpose. So there's a lot of setup and seems to work fine so far. Wonder if that was audible for the rest as well. Ah, yes, it is a variable bitrate. I see the warning coming and going about the quality of the stream. No worries there. Oh, wow. Three spectators already. Oh. Welcome, Priya.
Hey Edwin, hi.
That well, everybody can hear us. They can't see what we put in the chat though.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear your feedback, but we do have some delay. That's the point. As in the streaming takes about 5 or 10 seconds before you hear us. So we can't react instantly, of course. We'll have to read it first, and then the delay comes again before you, hear our replies. But yes, I read this. Leandro Quiban Magnabosco. I hope I pronounced that right. Lower frame rate. Well, I don't think there's a lower frame rate, but I'm looking to settings if there's anything I can do to make it more consistent. Let me see. Uh, well, I do make it a habit of speaking too fast every now and then. That may, of course, also have been the cause of unclear, well, anything. Oh, this is nice. There's a button for me to share the sound on my computer. So apparently you don't hear anything that comes out of my speakers. Of course, good idea, otherwise there would be an echo from other speakers. Oh well, learning something new, I would say every day, but it's only for today. So every minute or so, I can't believe people are still using Teams, looking at all the features that Zoom has. All right. It seems we have our first participants, or actually speakers. Welcome, Silva, Paulo, and Erez. Um, we have started the stream for sound checking and such, so anything you say can and probably will be heard by others.
All
Well,
right.
that's the point of the presentation, I guess. I've made Erez co-host so he can test sharing of his screen and doing the same for you now. Yep.
All right.
So as usual, well, test if sharing works, I would say.
Okay, this will stop others sharing screen. Do you want to continue? Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. That's the
All right.
placeholder.
Okay, so let me just make it look great on the screen. So yes. So can you get my screen?
Yep, I see
All
it.
right.
So in a couple of seconds, yes, there it is in the stream as well. So visible to everyone.
All right. Maybe Erez, do you want to take it from me?
Yeah,
Just to
let's
double check.
let's see if that works. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, you're controlling my screen. Well done.
Okay. It's a bit delayed, so I need to be patient, but it works. I need not to press twice, even if I really want to.
Well, maybe you can share your one screen because right now you're controlling mine. Oh, even I can take the control.
We can do it together.
Interesting. According to our spectators, there's a bit of a hollow sound, and I must agree. So it's probably on your microphone end and not on the streaming issue, because I'm hearing the Zoom call and have the same audio effect.
Yeah, maybe. Erez, do you want to check it on your side? How is my audio?
I think yours is fine. Let me check mine.
Yeah, I believe the problem, the noise may come from your.
Let me try connecting something else. Just a second.
Yes. Clearly, Erez has
Yeah, some issues with the.
difficulty with sound.
Yeah.
You know that Erez always has issues.
Erez, so if you could see if you have any other input devices for your audio, would be appreciated. He dropped off the call. Perhaps the reconnect works. You never know.
Well, this is how it works with Zoom, I think.
Well, still better than my team's experience.
Oh, I agree.
Teams has a nasty habit of selecting the wrong devices in a consistent manner.
Yeah.
Well, at least it's consistent, but
And usually, at least on Linux, sometimes I get stuck with one account and I can't switch to another. Otherwise, I have to go and delete some cache folder and then start again Teams. So better sticking with Zoom.
well, I guess I can consider myself lucky having just one account.
Yep.
But well, that's for the sound
Yeah.
output devices is also
Yeah, an issue with
wonderful.
Teams. Yeah.
You have a screen with a nice speaker in it, USB-C screen, and it keeps using the internal laptop audio. And once you plug in a headphone, it decides to switch to the screen rather than the headphone. I
So
don't know who
Erez,
thought of it.
all right. I'm gonna admit Erez. For some reason I can do it, so I've done it. I believe you made me admin.
Admin? No, just a co-host.
No?
Oh, wait.
Okay. All right.
So I can, and Erez is co-host again, so he can
All right.
share.
All right.
Oh, I read here in the comments that Teams on Linux is a web app, basically. That's why. True. Microsoft has yet to review.
It's a web app, right?
Yeah, it is a web app. It
Yep.
used to
Yeah,
be a
it's
native
it's
client, but they changed.
yeah. I believe it's an Electron app. It's built on Electron, like several other Microsoft applications. I believe the Skype is also a web app right now. It's like built with Electron.
Oh, I would just virtually describe it as a shitty app, but Electron is fine as well, I guess. Either way. So let's see if the other Skype still exists. Ooh, that's a good question.
I believe it still exists.
Wasn't it acquired by Microsoft? Which would mean it would basically, well, degrade to the level of Teams. Oh, that's nice.
Maybe.
If you're speaking, I'll see your, what is it? Your camera pop up on the screen as well in the right upper corner.
Yeah.
But only when you're speaking. It doesn't work for me because I've disabled my camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they switch to they focus the speaker, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but even if I'm presenting, I'm sharing my screen now and talking, but I'm not visible.
Yeah.
Because simply I have got my webcam disabled. Either way, where are the other hosts?
I was checking. Yeah, where is Erez?
Yeah,
maybe
Erez
he's
here.
asking. Maybe he's asking. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? But we are not.
No. He's muted, and okay.
Okay.
Well, of course, that doesn't mean that he's not trying, but no.
Okay. All right.
But
Let
I
me
mean
ping
the other
him.
presenters.
Yeah. So is Erez here? Let me see participants.
He's in the chat. He can at least chat, I think.
Well, let me ping him on the side channel.
But of course, the more important question by now: where are
me-based? You can't hear
Ben
me.
de Haan and
Guys, is this somehow better?
Oh, much better now.
Way better.
Now we can see your nice haircut.
Yeah, and you know, I put no effort. I just woke up like this.
Same.
I'm steps.
Okay, but where is Ben de Haan? And there was someone else as well for the intermediate update from the Security Champions Guide. Let me see. I did send him an email.
I'm to change the setup here now with the new camera. It's a new camera and new microphone. But you can still hear me, right?
Yes, yep,
Yes, we can.
loud and clear.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, well, that's why we have a sound checking time, I think.
I think it's the first time that my preparations are actually streamed.
So
Well.
the world now knows the effort you put on it. Oh, take the time to promote OPSEC Village. This is why we're streaming this. Okay.
Oh, Robin as well. What's the email address of Robin anyway? Oh dear. Here it is, Paulo. Seems I've forgotten Robin, or perhaps Robin said he didn't join. Well, wait, there it is. Oh, Paulo Silva, question for you. Are you a fellow Brazilian? Apparently, question from Leandro.
In no way, I'm a fellow Portuguese. It sounds almost the same, but we are apart for a I'm based in Portugal and yeah, no, yeah. I'm Portuguese and based in Portugal.
And for the next question, I'm not from Brazil as well.
You got me.
Somehow, neither am I, but I don't think that's a surprise. It
But
seems
I'm
we
waiting
have
for an
21
invite.
viewers. Oh. Oh, well, it seems we have 21 viewers waiting to start. Well, welcome everyone. In about 7 minutes, we'll start with our April chapter meeting. Grab yourself a drink or bite to eat. 7 minutes before we start. Thank you.
Since we already have viewers, I wonder if they prefer to see me live or this profile picture. Can we do a poll?
Well, you should go to YouTube. I was trying that, but then you have a sound issue. So
Yeah, no, I had a driver issue with my audio. I had to switch gears, and I'm afraid that on this machine, if I have YouTube open in
okay,
parallel,
you should keep your camera on. Ernesto is saying live is always better. I agree with him.
yeah. Okay, so another poll question: who's coming to OWASP Global Lisbon?
Ah, let's see. I'm following the live chat on YouTube. It's my first time on YouTube, I believe, at least live. So
The streaming, yeah.
yeah, maybe I need to call home and say I'm live. All right. Who's coming to OWASP Lisbon? Global AppSec Lisbon.
Silence.
Yes.
Live is always better. Yes, of course. Okay, seems the amount of viewers is still increasing. We're at 26 at the moment. Welcome, everybody. All right, we're up to the 30 viewers. Welcome, everybody, to the OWASP Netherlands chapter meeting of April 2024. I'm your host, Edwin, and today we'll have some interesting topics for you. And now I do hope here. Our agenda for today will start with some updates from the chapter itself, followed by the API security, the OWASP API Top 10 Unlocked by Erez Yalon and Paulo Silva. After that, a short break of 5 minutes so you can grab yourself a drink, followed by the OWASP Security Champions Guide by Cheyenne Yasmin, and How Not to Use Secrets with OWASP WrongSecrets by Ben de Haan. Of course, there's some time for feedback, and we'll have a QR code at the end on this slide for a Google form where you can leave your feedback. If you do have any questions in the meantime, feel free to use the chat on YouTube. I'll be watching that, and I'm the one that you see writing back as OWASP Netherlands. If you do have any questions, I will relay them to the speakers so they're audible in the presentation as well. The chapter updates. Okay, our next event after this meeting, of course, is on the 23rd of May in Breukelen, the OWASP Cyber Booked. More details can be found on our website. And the same goes to the, June chapter meeting, which will be in Amsterdam, a physical meeting again about supply chain security. Details will follow, such as the location. Keep track of our website, our Slack channel, or the mailing list. And to those that think, well, I'd like to have some holiday, Lisbon is wonderful in June, as it seems, and especially because there's a big conference by OWASP. The Global AppSec is coming to Lisbon this year, 24 to 28 of June, 3 days of trainings and 2 days of conference. For more details, just scan the QR codes. And now, on to the first talk by Paulo and Erez. So, Paulo, Erez, welcome and thank you for this. The floor is yours.
All right. So please let me know whether you can see my screen. I should be sharing now.
Yeah.
All
yes,
right.
you are.
So I'm assuming we are live on YouTube. So thanks for
Correct.
the opportunity to be here and live on YouTube too. First thing first, my name is Paulo Silva. I'm a fellow Portuguese. I'm a principal security researcher at SHARP 49, but I have a software developed background. I did it for more than 15 years, plenty of time to do all sort of security mistakes. Then I decided to shift and start breaking stuff. With us, we have Erez.
My name is Erez Yalon. I'm the VP of Security Research at Checkmarks for a living, but then I also run the AppSec Village at DEF CON. Shameless plug. And also together with Paulo, we lead the OWASP application, the OWASP API Security Top 10 project.
So what do we have today? We're going to cover how to build and securing APIs. Nowadays, we have APIs everywhere. This is why we started the project. They are a bit different from traditional applications, and we should realize that and address specific API security issues. We're going to cover that. And on the second part, we are going to also share some real-world issues we found on APIs. We're going to dig a deep we're going to dive on some issues and see the technical stuff in them. So let's just start from the beginning when the World Wide Web was created. It wasn't meant to be used for home banking, e-commerce and stuff like that. It was the HTTP protocol and all the web technology. It was for stuff, very simple stuff, just fetching a text resource and get them rendered on the screen. From that moment on, we built a lot of stuff on top of a very simple protocol, adding different layers to build and achieve our own goals. And I would say it would be expectable to get some issues when we start building complex stuff on top of something that was built for with another purpose. So at the beginning, we were talking about fetching a resource, getting the HTML or text or whatever, and get it on the screen. Then we felt the need to create some dynamic pages, and then on the server side, we got some PHP or any other server-side language to get some dynamic pages. Then we came up with mobile applications, and we were willing to get the same data presented on different screens and different devices, the same data source, but different presentation layers. We tried that with APIs. Instead of retrieving HTML and the style sheets from the server, we were just fetching data. And probably this is where the first APIs appeared. So if we were using all APIs, if the APIs were the data source, then we decided to change also our applications to use the APIs. But with the Internet of Things advent, APIs got everywhere. Right now, we have not only web applications, desktop applications fetching data from remote servers, but we also have other devices, not only fetching data, but also creating data that should be shared with several other devices. And this made, I would say, APIs, this put APIs everywhere. Right now, I would say that everything has at least one API to pull or push data. And with this change, I'd say the problems start arising, and they should be addressed. On the API side, the most common API protocols, probably everyone knows about the REST protocol. This one is built on top of HTTP. It adheres to the standard. It's quite common, maybe even the most common HTTP protocol. But there are several others, like the RPC protocol. It does not rely on the HTTP. It's a protocol by itself. The most common data exchange formats are JSON or XML. It's still quite simple. Everything is on the message. For some features, we still rely on HTTP headers, but if we are not using HTTP, then we should rely on something else, or everything should be on the request payload. Then on the last few years, GraphQL got very popular. GraphQL is a bit different from REST and RPC. It's engine and a query language. It's a bit different. It got very popular because it addresses some concerns on REST APIs. With GraphQL, instead of fetching a full resource with several properties that probably we don't care about, we can request exactly the data we want, several different resources at the same time. And although we have been protecting and working on REST API security and RPC security, GraphQL brought a new set of features and different ways to do the same stuff. And the solutions we built for REST and RPC, they don't work for GraphQL. Right now, what I have on my mind is, for instance, rate limiting. When we have batching that we have with RPC, but we don't have with REST, and we also have with GraphQL, which also brings like alias and other features, traditional rate limiting tools, and they won't. It's likely they don't work for GraphQL APIs, and we need to find another way to approach these requirements. So nowadays, I would say every day we're gonna read something on the news about an API leak or some compromised API. There are some repos where you can get data from about data leaks and stuff like that. This is exactly what we have here on the screen. Those are the most with higher cost, I believe, data leaks since between January 2023 and January 2024. So, all right, approve. So every day we're gonna have a different data leak, and the average cost of each data leak is just increasing, keep increasing. So that's the reason, because APIs are very predictable and it's, I would say, fairly easy. You don't have to exactly learn how it works because they're predictable. This is how they are built for. They are the main target for attackers, and this is why they are every day we have new data leaks and the cost, because they have data, and this is what attackers are after. Why the cost keep rising. Erez, I believe you can control my screen now.
Yeah.
So now it's on you.
Let me actually go back to the previous one. Let's see. Nope.
You're going to the next one. Okay, let me help you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So you were talking about all the different vulnerabilities and all the different exploits, and how we see it's really dramatic. We see that you started mentioning that API is meant to expose data. This is the reason why we have APIs. And security was not really baked into that in the beginning. And the consequences are terrible. And I did not mention in the beginning when I introduced myself, but I have a superpower. This superpower is basically the fact that I'm exposed to many mistakes out there, and there are a lot of mistakes there. And what we noticed is that there is a big gap in the understanding of specifically security issues that are API related. And by that, I mean either things that are more relevant to APIs or behave differently in APIs or protected differently in APIs, or more prevalent in APIs. And this was the reason that in 2019, let me see if I can switch slides. Yeah. So in 2019, together with Ynnon Shkedi, I founded the API Security Top 10, because we felt like what we need is to bring more information into the ecosystem of developers, of security people, of security auditors, of pen testers, to start and understand that things are not the same. The traditional applications are not the same as the new ones, or the other way around, basically. And we need to start thinking like attackers, because attackers are already there. We know that technology moves forward and attackers join. Only then security catches up. So in this guide, in this API Security Top 10 that was published in 2019, it was the base for many API security companies. It was adopted by them. Gartner, Forrester, other analysts adopted it as a skeleton of what should be done with API security. And we were very happy because it got very popular and was translated to many languages. And the top things were things around access control. Now, the next version that we introduced, that happened last year. Paulo, next slide. Thank you. And we made some changes. Some things stayed exactly as they were. Maybe some name changes, You can see that the lines, the solid lines, are things that stay the same. You can see that some of the lines here show that there is different naming that we used, and the dotted lines are actually different ones. Things were changed, either added or removed. One of the biggest questions that we get still this day is why injection was removed. I think we can still leave it for the question section in the end of this talk, but basically we felt that injection is an issue with software in general, in web in general. This is not specifically an API thing. You need to make sure that what you get is what you're supposed to get. You need to make sure that what you get is safe and not malicious. This is not different in API than in anything else. Also, it is covered in API 10, what we decided to add as unsafe consumption of APIs. This is the fact that sometimes inputs are not sanitized or not used in a correct way, in a safe way. Basically, it means that we trust things that come from APIs way more than things that come from inputs, and we see that this is I don't know, I guess a psychological thing. If it comes from API, we feel safer than if it comes from a form by a user. So this is the new list. You can see the QR code here, and join us on GitHub. This is where we get discussions, people open issues, and we have a lot of fun doing that. I think that what you can see here is that, again, not much different than 2019. In 2023, this version also has a very dominant place for everything access control, and actually we added another layer. In addition to broken object level authorization and broken broken function level authorization, we added another layer that I will talk about in a second, of broken object property level authorization. And also we changed a little bit broken authentication. But basically what we see here is that 4 out of the first 5 issues are about access control. And I think it's important to understand why. Paulo, next slide. So yeah, as I said, access control is the #1 problem in API security. As you can see, it's a big enough problem to get its own slide. So let's see what access control means. When we talk about access control, we're talking about the 2 different authors. That's authentication or authorization. Authentication is the process of verifying that an individual entity or website is who it claims to be. Okay, basically, who are you? This is the question we're asking. If I have someone that claims they are one thing and they're actually another, or maybe if I'm not even asking, then I have broken authentication. Authorization is a bit more complex. Authorization is the process of verifying that a requested action or service is approved for a specific entity. Okay, I know who the entity is. I already authenticated the entity, but I need to know what they can access, what they can do, what are they allowed to do. And there are, as I said, a few layers for that. Let's move on and see an example. So this is a very cool example that I stole from Yalon Shkedi. Imagine an application like Airbnb or any other hosting application. What we see here, let's talk about the function level. We know that an API endpoint that is about accepting a reservation, we know that only a host user should be able to trigger that endpoint, right? The API endpoint should be accessed only by host. Only a host should do this function. And that's fine. So far, so good. This is the first layer. Let's see the next layer. Then we have the next layer. if we have a host that is able to access someone else's reservation, then we talk about broken object level authorization, because they touched an object that someone else owns or something that they don't have permission to. So in this specific case, we have an object or an asset or a reservation that has an ID of 919. Only the host that owns that reservation should be able to touch that. If someone else is doing that, either by looking at it or changing it or anything else, what we have here is broken object level authorization. But this is not the end. We have another layer, and this was what was added in the last version. What we're talking here about the parameters also of the object. So basically, we have the host, okay? The host can change or modify things in the reservation. We know that the object level is fine. The host is touching or using or looking or editing the object, the reservation that they own, but maybe there is a place in time where they cannot really change all the parameters. For example, if I can change the total stake price to $1 million without the consent of the user as a host, probably that's a problem, right? So this would be a broken object parameter level authorization. So what we see here is that the complexity is getting bigger and bigger. And also, this is a relatively simple case, because think of when we're talking about hosts that are also users, they can also stay, or users that are also hosts, or things that are co-hosted, etc. And the same happens in banks, where you can be both administrator and also user. You can be in hospitals, in the health industry. You can have the same patient for two doctors, but you don't want some things to be seen by someone else. This is not easy. And things that are not easy tend to get very complex and get to break relatively quickly and often. So let's move on. Excellent. So another question we get a lot is, how do we start protecting APIs? So basically, okay, thank you so much. You gave me 10 problems to deal with, 10 things to start with. By the way, this is not the definitive 10 things that are wrong or vulnerable in APIs. This is just the beginning. This is a kind of a skeleton to get awareness around. But where do we start? And this is an important part. It sounds a bit cliche, and you heard it probably in many different areas around security, but it's the basic truth, and it's the same here. You cannot protect what you don't know, okay? So what we need is to have proper inventory management. And by proper inventory management, I'm talking about, yes, I'm sorry, housekeeping. Housekeeping is something that developers hate doing. I know that, I've been there. This is not the fun part. This is not the smart part, but this is the secure part. And keeping your inventory does not just mean having documentation of the inventory. It also means that you have a very clear way of deprecating APIs. We know that attackers, one of their favorites is to find some ghosts from your past. Maybe even from beta testing. That's my favorite. When I look at something and I see a version 2 of API, that's excellent. I would immediately try version 1 and 0, because these are where the skeletons are in the closets. And making sure that you have everything in your inventory means that you not only deprecate it correctly, but also when you have a mechanism to protect it, and I'm not even talking about protecting APIs at the moment, it can be either gateways or anything else that you choose. If it's not documented, you can be sure that you will forget to update it. You will forget to audit it. You will forget to protect it by any means you decide to do. So unfortunately, there is no way around housekeeping. And again, you cannot protect what you don't know. So this is the start. Other areas that you should keep an eye on, especially in the new version, are API 4, 6, and 8. And what we're talking here is about unrestricted resource consumption. Many times we think only around the denial of service part, or it's either DDoS or other logic of denial of service. But what we sometimes forget is, first of all, the cost that increases with that. This is denial of funds, let's call it. And also, this is the way, having a lot of information being sent and asked for repetitively is the commonly used to exfiltrate large amounts of data. And we see that in almost every data breach. Many times things would be avoided with correct resource, when you keep an eye on the restriction of the resources. And it's easier said than done, because someone needs to remember to do that. But this is not a rocket science. This is just about limiting or throttling the API usage and monitoring. And of course, we know that there are automatic ways to circumvent that. So it's basically a mouse and cat, a cat and mouse game. API 6 is unrestricted access to sensitive business flows. This is a bit more relevant in APIs because, again, it's easier. It's easier to communicate. It's easier to automate. And this is usually exploited through automation. We see that with scalper bots. You know that from times when you're trying to buy a ticket to a specific movie or a show, and you're entering 5 seconds after the registration was open, and already everything is gone. The same happened with Nintendo 5 and all that. So basically, this is something that is growing, and we're seeing more and more of that. This is mostly a business impact, other than actually a security issue. But if this is something you want to control, this is very important to understand that this is on the rise. And it's technically challenging to tackle, because with the use of VPNs and bots and swarms, it's very hard to see that something that is basically legitimate. I'm going in and buying something. This is the actual wanted flow, the actual required logic. It's very hard to see that there is something malicious behind it. And the last one, an old favorite, and the reason is that it's just it never gets old. The same things we've seen 20 years ago are still there: misconfiguration. These are usually very easy to identify and exploit. It's easy to forget. You need to toggle something from off to on or something like that. Default configurations are an attacker's friend, as always. And what we need to do to mitigate that is just make sure that that the defaults are changed, and there is a very clear hardening process. Most of the solutions these days have very clear hardening processes. This is something that we must keep an eye on and follow. Next, please. So yeah, I think that when I describe now everything, this is a good time to see what happens when things go south, when things go wrong. Paulo, that's yours.
Yeah, and hopefully this is where we're gonna have fun, because we're gonna look on others' issues instead of ours. So usually it's when we have an API client and web applications or mobile applications tend to be a good starting point. It's easier to understand how things work under the hood. And by under the hood, I mean the APIs. So At some point, we decided to have a look on Coursera and see how the web application was built. And of course, there was an API. So all the data was pulled from an API. And while just pushing some buttons on the web UI, we noticed this API request to fetch user preferences from the API server. As you can see on the left side, it's a REST API. And to fetch specific user preferences, there's no authorization header nor any other authentication or authorization token. So it's fair to assume that this is an unauthenticated request. So the API knows what user we're requesting based on an ID. So we're likely able to request any other user preferences. And as I said before, this is exactly what we have on the right side. For user 69810.362, we got on the right side the response, his preferences. And as I said earlier today, APIs tend to be predictable, and this is why attackers love them. So if you're familiar with REST APIs, you know that if you want to fetch a resource, you should use the get method. And if you want to create a new resource, you should use the post. And if you want to update something, you should use put. So this is a good starting point. So if probably it's likely if we want to update our preferences, we should do a put request and we should provide the data. Maybe we don't know, if we don't know what data we should provide, nothing better than provide exactly the same than the API returns. And we tried that. At the beginning, we tried that for our own user, just providing the same payload we got from the server. And we got a successful response. So we were able to update our own preferences. But as I said before, there is no authentication nor authorization token, nor in the fetch request, nor in the preferences update request. So we were likely to be able to update other user preferences. And that was exactly what we realized. And this is how we could change another user homepage. So we have here a user, we can see his preferences. One of them that are not that critical is the recent activity, last viewed courses. And this is the real user activity. So we could fetch this, but as we saw before on the API side, we should also be able to change it. So let me see if I can just speed this up. So this is for that user, the recent viewed courses. And what we're going to do here is exactly what I described earlier. We're just going to pick this. I was expecting it to move a bit faster, but right now we're going to use the API to change his recent activity. We're going to replace all the courses by the same a course from the same company. So we're going to push some courses to the user, changing his homepage, and if we are lucky, he's gonna buy one of our own courses. This could be one of the attack scenarios. Just change the user's homepage and expect him to buy something from us. So the put request was successful, and when we go back to the homepage, what we should do shortly and refresh the homepage, we should get courses from a single entity on our recent activity. Let's just scroll down. So here we have them. We have changed the user recent activity by something else. Of course, we did it, we restored the preferences, and the recent activity was not the only preference we could change from a user without any authentication. But the point here is this: we knew nothing about the API, but since it's quite predictable, we know how it is meant to be used and how they work. We can just play with them and see what we get. Sometimes we have some verbose errors, and we can learn from the errors what the payload should look like, and we can just keep issuing requests, studying the responses, and learn how to interact with the API, even if no documentation is provided. So this was one of the issues, and we have something else, because we could not do this presentation without saying AI. So here we are with AI. When OpenAI first released ChatGPT, it was giving or offering some free credits to play with ChatGPT. I believe it was like $7, so that users could play with ChatGPT. But to play with ChatGPT and get the free credits, you'd have to sign up for an account with your email address, which should be unique. Then you'd receive a link to confirm your account. And during the confirmation process, the user would have to provide a phone number that should be also unique. So this was like a kind of human validation, because although it's quite easy to have different emails or disposable email inboxes, it's not that easy with mobile phone numbers. So they put that to prevent someone to abuse the free credit stuff. So again, with the web application, we looked under the hood. There was an API. All this logic, the sign-up logic and the phone number validation and the confirmation code, all that was implemented on the API level. So how does it look like back in the day? On the left side, we have the requests to the confirmation phone number. The requirement here was the phone number should be unique. So the first request we have on the top left was our phone number without country code. And we got the successful response on the right for phone verification. We got the code on our phone number. Then we did another request. This time we prepended the phone number with the country code, and we still got it. For OpenAI, the two phone numbers were unique because they were different, and we were still able to get the code. So at that time we had already $14 with the same with two accounts with the same phone number, and we decided, so as you may imagine, different email addresses but the same phone number. So we decided to keep creating new accounts. And the question was, what other changes could we do to the phone number to make it work, to bypass this restriction? So it was quite obvious that OpenAI was checking the database, whether the phone number was unique or not. And then they were relying on a communication provider to send the text message with the confirmation code. So we would have to make a smart change to make the phone number unique to OpenAI and still valid to the communication provider. And adding leading zeros did it. So we could keep adding leading zeros. For OpenAI, it would be unique, and for the communication provider, it was still valid because probably they were just removing leading zeros. Then we moved to Unicode characters, adding Unicode characters to the end of the phone number, and the same technique worked as expected. So it was unique for OpenAI, and the communication provider was probably stripping out the Unicode characters from the phone number and sending the text message. This is a great time to reinforce some idea we shared before. We should not trust or rely on others, on third parties, to get the job done. We should validate the number. If we are if the requirement is to make it unique, we should not rely on the communication provider response to say whether it's valid or not, because being valid is not the same than being unique. So the input validation and also the sanitization should be done by OpenAI first, and then send the phone number to the communication provider. We should not rely on the communication provider to do this for us. The same way we cannot trust the data we receive from third-party APIs. So at the end, we got like $300 free credits, and then we sent a security advisor to OpenAI who fixed the issue. This is just one case pending the Unicode characters at the end, and we're still receiving the confirmation code. So another example was the Porsche. This is a specific website. I really don't remember the name, but they have a website where users can go and schedule some events to drive.
It's a test drive event that
Yeah.
makes everyone happy, basically.
Yep. Then they get invoices, which of course have their address, phone number, VAT number, and stuff like that on that website. They get their lap times and stuff like that. All that powered by an API. What was interesting here, and I really like these examples or these scenarios when you can turn your own application, whether it's a web application, mobile application, IoT device, when you can turn it against your API. So this Porsche Experience website, it was of course powered by, in this case, a GraphQL API. So, and while looking at the API requests made from the web application, we noticed that they were sending the authentication/authorization token twice, both in the cookies and in the custom app authorization header. And if you're familiar with cookies and authorization headers, they using or sending an auth token on a custom header or the authorization header is a game changer in terms of cross-origin request forgery, cross-site request forgery. Your application has to append the token to the header, whilst the browser will automatically append the cookie to the request. So the question was whether the API was, if the app authorization header was not provided, whether the API was reading it from the cookie. So we just removed the header. So this request has the JWT token once in the cookie header, but we got the same response, meaning that the API was reading the cookie to authenticate and then probably authorize the request. So the next question was whether we could issue requests from another origin, a different website other than Porsche, and the browser would add or append the cookie automatically. Although when you play with the origin header on the request, although the API server says that's okay to send API requests from that origin, the browser wouldn't do it because of the cookie configuration. I'm not sure whether it is on my screen or not, but the cookie was not set to HTTP only, so it could be read by JavaScript, and the same site property was set to LAX. This means that the browser won't send the cookie on cross-origin requests. So it could be like a dead end, but usually we have great friend, or hackers have great friends when they want to issue requests, and cross-site scripting is that friend. So if we would found a cross-site scripting, then we could use that Porsche site to make the API request. And in fact, we found several cross-site scripting occurrences. We just picked up the campaigns port because it would be a great domain for a phishing campaign. And then we built a POC. So this is how it looks like. We patiently waiting for victims' data. We're gonna start a phishing campaign offering a portrait track experience to some friend of ours with campaigns.portrait.com URL in the email body. Once clicked, we make the API request to fetch the victim's data and send it to the attacker's remote server. So this is what we have on the screen. This is a POC just to prove the impact and how to turn the web application against your own API. So this was it, but today I added something new to share with you. This is my last slide here on the breaking things part. We have here 50, I believe 52 or 54 cross-site scripting occurrences, all of them on the Swagger on API documentations of. This is from same company, the same organization. So it doesn't make any sense you put some effort protecting your APIs, and then your documentation is vulnerable to some old-fashioned web application vulnerabilities that can be leveraged to target your API, like I've shown on Porsche Experience. So if you're bringing this Swagger interface to render your documentation, then it's also your responsibility to keep it up to date and patch any vulnerabilities it might have. So if you're using this, go and check whether it's vulnerable. So Erez, I believe you're the right guy to do the wrap up.
Yeah, so let's summarize. Also, we're at the top of our time. So basically, APIs are here to stay. This is not something I even need to convince people. A few years ago, when I talked to a CISO and he told me, okay, so we won't use APIs. Luckily, today, I don't hear it anymore. But APIs come with their own sets of vulnerabilities. OWASP is working on closing the knowledge gap. This is our biggest agenda at the moment, closing the knowledge gap with API security top 10. Visit us, join us. I want you to remember that access control is tough. It's not easy. We know that. You need to get your authentications and authorizations in order to make sure that everything is fine. Remember that. And also, you need to get full visibility into your APIs. It's necessary first step. And also, you must make sure that your housekeeping is in order. So basically, with this, we thank you for joining us for this session, and we really hope that you will join us in the project as well. If you follow us, you'll get our call for data for security vendors or other people who actually find data, call for opinions, or anything else regarding the next versions that we will work on. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, Erez and Paulo, thank you very much for this presentation. And to our viewers, we have over 50 at the moment. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat so I can relay them to the speakers. I think they'll stay here for a short while, perhaps to view the other presentations as well. We now have a short break, and after that, Cheyenne will be the next one presenting, followed by Ben de Haan. So grab yourself a drink and we'll restart the session at 5 minutes to 8, so 19:55. Hope to see you then. everybody has taken the opportunity to grab a drink, and we're on to our next presentation about the Security Champions Manifesto. And for that reason, Cheyenne is joining us today. So Cheyenne, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me well. I will give a brief update today about the Security Champions Manifesto on behalf of our project team. It's not just me, it's also Irfan, Robin, and Michael who are working hard on this, but I have the honors to do the update today. So some of you have maybe seen our presentations before when we have talked about this initiative. Some of you may have not. So a quick reminder, Security Champions, and why are we even doing something regarding Security Champions? I think we all see that security has been shifting a lot the past years towards being more proactive, more collaborative, and that the old-fashioned way of doing things is not working anymore. And we all also know there's a huge gap in amount of people that have security knowledge and are in a formal security role. And Security Champions is a great initiative to actually bridge this gap and to bring security operations and development closer together, where people who are not necessarily in a full-time security role but do have an interest in security or have security knowledge will actually step up and fill this gap. And we see a lot of organizations who are eager to launch Security Champions projects. Some very successfully, some struggle quite a bit. And that was the trigger for us to say, hey, let's make it an OWASP project, and let's provide the community with advice on how to set up a successful Security Champions program. And a Security Champions program, from our perspective, all starts with people who are passionate about security, and it's also the first pillar in our Security Champions manifesto that we released earlier last year. And what is the goal of our project? Well, the goal was that we create a proven methodology that works to build, to grow, and to maintain a successful Security Champions program in a wide range of organizations. So it should work for any type of organization, for large enterprises, but also for small or medium-sized businesses. And we want to provide organizations with actionable advice and tools to achieve this. So you see quite a lot of information on Security Champions online, but a lot of it is just theory and very descriptive. What do Security Champions do, or what should they be doing? And not so much examples of how to successfully implement this and how to keep it a success. So that's the goal of our initiative here. We started in phase 1, obviously, and we did some research. This is based on our own experience, but also we interviewed a dozen organizations from different sizes and different sectors that all have Security Champions programs. Some are very successful, some are less successful. And on purpose, actually, we also wanted to talk to the less successful ones because we wanted to find out basically one thing: what works. So what makes a successful Security Champions program that lasts over a longer period of time, and what elements are needed to create a successful program as such. And after that research that we did, and also based on personal experience, we came to the conclusion that there are 10 pillars that are necessary to create a successful Security Champions program, and we called that the Security Champions Manifesto. We have done a quick presentation on this one before at OWASP, so if you're interested in more, maybe watch that, or of course look to our page. And then we also have a lot of information published on the how and the what of these pillars in the manifesto. So and also why. So why is it an important aspect, and how does it exactly work, and what do you need to do to implement this properly? And especially the last part, the what do you need to do to implement this, is something we are currently working on in phase 2. So we are kicking off phase 2 now, and we will work towards making the manifesto more actionable and more repeatable for others. So to provide concrete advice of how you implement each of these pillars. And in order to do that, we have identified a few work streams to achieve these steps, also to become more efficient. I'll elaborate a little bit on all of those later. So one is artifact collection. The second one is content expansion. And the first step there is that we will work on a maturity model for security champions programs. The third is community engagement. Obviously, we need your input, and we need also the community to spread the word on the security champions program. So more and more organizations will start testing it, and also from that we will learn a lot. And we want to make a website for the security champions guide, so we can use that to publish all the artifacts, for example, and all the tangible advice that we give you in order to build this. And as you've seen, the core team is just 4 people, so we are actually looking for volunteers. So if anybody is interested in helping out in any of these work streams, or maybe in more than one work stream, please reach out to us, because it would be cool to learn from your experience, especially if you have experience building a security champions program. If not, and you just think it's a very interesting initiative, of course, we always welcome that, because like we said, even with this, it starts with being passionate about security. So it would be great if people would reach out and help. We've gotten a few responses already, so we're eagerly looking forward to take this further. And one of the main items we are working now on are artifacts. So we are in the phase of gathering what we call artifacts that can be used as baselines and templates for other organizations to help them implement pillars of the manifesto. So that can be examples of companies that have already implemented a security champions program that are eager to share their material that we then can anonymize and make it usable for everybody to use as a baseline on how to actually implement the pillars. And that will be for starting the community, but also obviously for growing it. So anybody that has interesting artifacts to contribute would be great to hear from you. We have collected a few already, and we're planning to publish those before the end of the year. And we hope to have a big library for you available by then. The second item we're working on is in the theme of content expansion is a maturity model. So when we were researching this, we heard 2 very common struggles with security champions programs. The first one is, how do I keep my program alive? A lot of people had great initiatives and they started a community or a program with a lot of enthusiasm, but it died down after a while and they found it hard to pick it up again. Or we heard from people that had security champions programs that were quite successful, but they got stuck in a certain phase, in a very immature phase. And they weren't able to really embed it into the company culture or to make it a thing that will actually last. So for that, we want to help programs to determine, well, where I am right now and what do I actually need to do to thrive and to become more mature, because we want to enable people to build programs that will withstand the test of time. If great people or the people who took the initial initiative leave, they should survive. And we want security champions programs that are really embedded in the organization and have a lot of support in the organization. And especially with the bottom-up initiatives, you see quite a lot that is missing, and it doesn't mature further, which is a shame. So we are working on a maturity model that will not only help to identify, well, how are you doing now? And are you likely to succeed with what you have now? But also, how can you actually make the next steps and provide advice on how to go from one maturity level to the next. And in order to do this, like I mentioned, we need a community. So we want to work with you, the security community, to identify new areas to build new features for our guide in the first place. So that's in terms of content extensions. Maybe people have great ideas of what we should include in our project. And we aim to build a community to connect with existing communities and to expand the circle with people who are experienced and knowledgeable on the security champions topic. And additionally, we want the community to obviously spread the word to make our guide even more accessible, so we can help even more organizations successfully implement security champions programs. And lastly is the website. So We're working on a website, and we will want this to really serve as your personal landing page where you can go to, for all you need to know about security champions, how to start one up, how to grow your community, how to maintain, maybe even to exchange information with others on the status of security champions projects. So also a lot of help would be very cool if we could get that here for people who are experienced in this. And that's what we aim for phase 2. So phase 2 is starting off now, and we intend to work on that for the rest of this year onto early next year. And by then, we hopefully conclude this phase and can then move on to the future. So like I said, if you have great ideas for what we should work on in the future, we're also very eager to hear that. And also after finishing phase 2, it would be great to maybe do I wouldn't call it an experiment because we have already researched this quite a bit and have found out what works, but to actually implement it together with a couple organizations to see how we can make it even better for other people. So if you would like to help us, please reach out. But also if you're just interested in seeing how we're doing or receiving updates, or if you have any feedback on our current approach, we really appreciate that. We have a LinkedIn page, so if you scan the QR code at the top, you'll be able to connect to us and send any of the members in the project team a message. And that was it.
All right. Thank you very much for this update. So anyone, if you want to read it of view what they did, there will be a link somewhere on our OWASP Netherlands page as well, referring to this project as part of, OWASP, basically. And then it's up to our next and last of today, how to use, or actually not use, secrets with the OWASP WrongSecrets project by Ben de Haan. But let me see if it works to share the screen.
Yes.
You should be.
Let me check. Hitting share. If all's well, you should see my screen.
Yep.
Perfect.
It's just the regular.
Sorry,
Yeah, just a regular PowerPoint, not the presentation mode yet.
That's right. There we go.
Now it is. All right.
Okay. So thanks for the introduction and welcome. I'll be carrying the red lantern for today. So let's get started. And let's not keep you from your sleep or whatever it is you want to do for tonight. Otherwise, how to not use secrets with OWASP WrongSecrets. Normally speaking, I'd be with Jeroen Willemse. Today I'm alone. Jeroen Willemse is the project leader. I'm the project co-leader of OWASP WrongSecrets now for, 4 years? So let's dive in. First off, setting the boundaries. What do we mean when we say secret? So the scope that we intend to choose is anything that is usually used by something in automation or user credentials, whatever, HMAC keys, TLS private keys, tokens, API tokens, IAM access keys, for example, for cloud or other kind of credentials files, two-factor, etc. There's a whole lot of things that you could call secrets. Generally speaking, stuff that you don't want to leak, right? But we're not talking about secret documents, more the things that should protect those secret documents. So the part that grants the access. And let me start off with a bit of an example. Say you run an npm install, and I guess you're familiar with what happens then. You pull in packages and dependencies of those packages, like a lot of packages. And what I want to ask from you is, what would happen if one of those packages was malicious? So what would that package then generally do? What if one of these packages is bad news? And there's one very interesting paper, and that is the Backstabber's Knife Collection, a review of open source software supply chain attacks, written in 2020. And what they did is they analyzed 3 major repositories, namely NPM, RubyGems, and PyPy, took known malicious examples from those and looked at what they do. And the major categories, like by far, were data exfiltration or data exfiltration and a backdoor. And what does this data exfiltration mean? For example, files would look at your .n files, would look at your Discord tokens because they would be linked to, for example, credit card informations. Like 54% at least would look at this. Ruby is sort of a different case, since some of this logic does not happen at the install time. So instead, what happens with Ruby is that you download a dropper essentially, and only when the package is run, you really get to execute the malicious file. So in that case, most of it is a dropper. But for the other 2 major repositories, it's mostly data exfiltration and potentially backdooring it as well. So malicious packages target you as a developer and your secrets, that is, your access. So this is one of the things that we obviously want to protect more and more, one that we are aware of more and more. And there's, I think, plenty examples where things like this went awry. And well, you could say, yeah, it's pretty easy, yada, yada. But at scale, everything becomes difficult. And especially starting out, for junior developers, it's not necessarily easy to see why something would be a problem, yes or no. And just knowing that you shouldn't hard code something, that's one thing, right? Knowing that you shouldn't put something in plain text on your disk or whatever without additional protection and readable to everything on the system, that's already a bit further. Knowing how to properly handle encryption and getting a secret from a secrets management system, that's a whole different thing. So secrets management is quite complex. And this is the big reason why we started OWASP WrongSecrets. So with OWASP WrongSecrets, we want to have an explicitly a vulnerable app that teaches people on secrets management and the pitfalls to, well, help people reflect on their secrets management strategy, meaning that by looking at the examples that we have, some people actually went, wait, this is not a good idea, and then changed their strategy on secrets management. Also, we want to promote secrets management as a very important facet of security, since we believe that secrets management, it really is reflective of the general security maturity of, well, whatever organization. It's quite an active project, and we keep adding challenges, well, on a monthly basis. Sometimes it's a bit slower than other times. Sometimes we have 3 challenges in one go. We're now up to, I think, somewhere in the 40. And I must confess that I haven't even done the latest ones myself. So take a look if you want, of course. And that's what we'll be doing as well in just a bit. First off, I want to explain a bit more about the overall architecture that we have. So now we have the time and you're willing to join this meeting, we can go just a little bit deeper. So what happens in this project is that we have the application code, which is Java using Spring Boot, which are 2 very commonly used languages and frameworks, respectively. And then we also have binaries in there, Go, C++, and C, Rust. And I think there is now a C#, and there's a Swift one coming up as well. So not only do we have challenges in sort of the normal programming area, we also have binaries and reversing. There are challenges at every layer from there. So the application code, the container, and the configuration of the application. And then if you run it on Kubernetes, you will also have some challenges related to Kubernetes misconfigurations or Vault misconfigurations. And then finally, you can run it on either of the 3 major cloud providers. So AWS, GCP, or Azure. And we have a few challenges that are specific to those cloud platforms. So if you want to know specifically about privilege escalation in AWS and how it relates to secrets management, you could try that out, for example, in Challenge 11, one of my favorites, actually, within WrongSecrets. So, enough talk. Let's go to the demo. Let's see. So if you go to WrongSecrets, and that would be wrongsecrets.herokuapp.com, for example, you'll land on this page. This is the Heroku environment, obviously, and as such, some challenges will be disabled. Those are grayed out. And well, if you run them on your own environment, you will be able to run them. But yeah, no can do for this evening. The app starts with just a very basic introductory challenge, which will explain a bit about the UI. It also has a WrongSecrets desktop Docker image, and this contains some reversing tools, for example. If you don't want to install some of the tools that you need to use to fulfill some of these challenges, then you could use this WrongSecrets desktop instead. So let's test if it works. The first answer, let me make a typo just to be sure. If it's incorrect, you see this. If it's correct, you get a nice green banner telling you it is indeed correct. And it will be marked solved in the main UI, and then we can go on to the real thing. So challenge 1 would be finding a centralized hard-coded password, for example. And why is this not a good idea? Well, multiple reasons. First off being, it's hard to control exactly, or to know exactly who has had access to your source code at all given times. And putting it into, well, essentially something that is not configuration, but your application, makes it also harder to rotate. It makes it harder to audit. It makes it easier to leak because the access controls might not be as effective. And especially if you need to compile the app to actually run it, you would need to release an update to replace this thing. And even if you use obfuscation or whatever, you might be buying yourself some time, but don't count on your hard-coded thing to be secret for eternity. So, generally speaking, not a good idea. And we have some hints on how you could, for example, look for this very specific secret. And there's a few solution ways that you could use. For example, git secrets to detect hard-coded secrets. You could do trufflehog, the older trufflehog 2, but that's no longer maintained. The reason why we still include it is because the older trufflehog used to include some entropy detection as well. So not only would it look for secrets that would sort of match some kind of format or would work on some external system. Some trufflehog actually tries to validate secrets in some cases. It really tries to log into a database, for example, if it can, and see if it works. And Trufflog 2 would also, based on something that looked very secret-ish or had a high entropy, would signal that this was potentially also a secret. Now, then finally, we have the what's wrong, and then this would also tell you what's wrong, really. Pretty clear. If you also really want to know more about secrets management, we have some further reading included for people, like pointers on the secrets management cheat sheet, which is one of the premier resources, I would say. So let's solve another challenge. How about doing this Docker one? Maybe number 3, yes. So if you build your app in Docker and you don't want to have your password in the Java code necessarily, or whatever code it is, and instead you think, well, I've read this 12-factor app thing, secrets should be provided through the environment. So let's put it in the Docker file. Obviously, one, putting it in a Docker file is still hard coding it. And then 2, this is really easy to detect if you have access to said image. And it's kind of heartbreaking to see how many times this happens on something like Docker Hub, especially now that it's very easily to inspect using Docker Hub itself. So let's take a look at our WrongSecrets repository. And there we could just go to tags and look at the latest image. And here we have some nice env things set. And here we have something that very suspiciously looks like a password. Let's try. And obviously you would be able to see this in the repository itself. So Docker file. This is still essentially hard coding it, putting the secret in code. So bad in more ways than one. Stepping it up a notch, alternatively, now the developer got a bit smarter, so to say, and instead we have an argument-based password. So this argument is passed in at the command line. So you would say, this is no longer hard coding it. What's the problem here? Well, if you know a bit about Docker, then you know that layers are cached, or layer. It builds every line, essentially builds a layer. And this is also reflected in this nice UI on Docker Hub. And although we can't find it necessarily in the code, this is still very easily catchable. So let's move to a different kind of challenge. Now, the developer has no longer put them in code, and instead the secret is in CI, which, well, it could do worse, definitely, yes. But now you also really need to make sure that the CI is up to spec on defending what it is that you have. Meaning, for example, who can create or run GitHub Actions in this case. And as soon as you can give someone the access to create their own actions on your repository, then you would essentially have compromised all your secrets, or count all your secrets as compromised. GitHub and others as well do give some basic, very basic protection against logging the secret, for example, by masking it. And even if you base 64 encode it, then it's still masked. But what happens if you make it just oh so slightly more advanced? So, for example, we have workflows here, challenge 13, and yeah, we run this on a cron basis to make sure that the output is always there. Otherwise, the logs would fall out. Then we have our secret here as a GitHub secret, the challenge 13 key, and this bash action will try and just echo out the secret. And then that will be masked. So let's look at some evidence there. There's a lot of things here. There we go. So this is already... Oh, I need to sign in to view the logs, obviously. So let's move to the different browser. There we go. And here we see, indeed, it's masked. Now, what happens if you base 64 encode it? Doing it once, that will still be masked. Doing it twice, though, I will pretty much guarantee you that any CI system you try this on will give you the value. So let's bring that over here. Echo and this got in a new line as well. And that's the emoji panel. Nice new hotkey Apple got. Base 64 minus D. Base 64 minus D. We have this. So let's see if this is the right value. There we go. Now, of course, this is especially important for anyone maintaining any open source repository. Make sure that it's not easily possible to run forkable actions, or that you allow actions in a fork to run on your CI essentially, or on a pull request, for example. When that happens, some of these sensitive CI/CD actions, if someone essentially pushes them in through a pull request, then ensure that they're either not allowed to run those CI actions at all, or make sure that they only run very specific actions that don't require the secrets, for example, or that they run not the content they put there, but rather the content that you have provided earlier. And internally, just ensure that you have the right access control in your CI/CD pipeline, and consider if you think your CI system is secure enough to store secrets, or that maybe you should fetch them dynamically from a secrets management system instead. All right. So now I have the next one. That would be challenge 19, where there's a C binary in this case. We compiled the code. Maybe this will be right then. A, if you have access to the source code. Chances are no, that's not okay. And two, anything you run on the client system, any secret you store there, probably treat that as being accessible to anyone else. So you're buying yourself some time, maybe, putting it into compiled code. But especially in the case of hard coding a string in C, this is absolutely trivial to retrieve. So if we look at, let's see, this is it. We have the wrong secrets executables folder right here, where we have some binaries for you to play with. And these contain C and then some advanced C in all kinds of different architectures. There's C++, there's Golang, there's Rust, like I said before. And then we have C# and Swift on the way. So what could you do? Let's first try to just run this thing. Okay. Yeah, doesn't really do anything, right?
Just a short question, Ben.
Yeah.
Can the terminal be enlarged? It's unreadable here.
Right.
Thank you.
Let's make this a bit bigger. So, okay, we have the wrong secrets binary here. And then running it, we get this is incorrect. Try again. Now, one thing you can do with C binaries, but also with others, although it might be a bit harder, would be to just use the strings utility. So strings, wrong secrets, and this is a small program, so it's quite easy. But if something looks like a password, then you bet this can be extracted by some more intelligent tool where the output from strings is piped to instead. And here we see all the strings. This is a hard-coded secret in C. Correct, congrats, yada, yada. Essentially all the things we use as default answers. And let's try and put this in. And there we go. So not that much different. Now, this evening, I don't really want to spoil everything here. I mean, there's plenty of things to go around. There's plenty of other secrets that we have in here. We have, for example, an AWS access key lying around. We have some Web3 related challenges. There's something more on the cryptography side, like sealed secret kind of challenges. And I really want to invite you to go and play these. Maybe even on a CTF. We also have CTF mode available. That's a bit trickier to set up. We did it once for the OWASP Benelux days, and we'll be happy to do it somewhere else again. Or maybe even at the OWASP Benelux days again. But no fun or less fun for the ones who already participated, I guess. So, what does this then tell us? For one, secrets management really touches all parts of coding, configuration, building your application, distributing your application. And as such, it is complex. And it's really hard, especially if you're new to this field, to understand all the facets and the risks that you're taking when exposing a secret in some way. And generally speaking, I would say the shorter you have your secret exposed, the better. The best place, since you always need a secret sometime, is to have it in memory in a short while. If that doesn't work, then maybe, yeah, you need, for example, a transient file mount, where this is something, for example, that the CSI driver does in Kubernetes, the CSI secrets store provider, for example. And this, using the service account token from Kubernetes or something that's bound to the pod, like credentials to some cloud, can mount something from Key Vault or from Secret Manager if you're in either of the clouds, or from HashiCorp Vault, and then provide that as a file system access, potentially temporarily. So that would also work, for example. And yeah, at some point you need to trust some system, but you should really think of a threat model that makes sense for you. How critical is this root token? Can I just leave it on disk, or do I need to put it somewhere safe? Do a threat model, and for that you also need to have a good inventory of your secrets, essentially. And this is where secrets management systems can really help as well. So it's not only a dedicated utility for you to put your secret somewhere safe, but it's also a way for you to inventory, okay, what kind of secrets do I have lying around in my organization? There's all sorts of third-party tools. There's Slack, there's Opsgenie, there's PagerDuty, there's whatever API integration that you have. And all of these things have tokens, probably. And probably there are some high privileged tokens or like break clause access keys or whatnot that can also be in some place that needs storing. And it's quite hard as a security team to know what's going on without having the visibility of something like a secret manager. One thing that I will also note is not only looking at how to use the secret correctly, but also on the application side, building some protections on validating the origin of the user of a secret. And with that, I mean, say you have a VM, and that VM is normally connecting to some API, or a user is connected to that VM running a web server, and there's some secret. And that secret should only ever be used from said VM or pod or whatever. And used, basically, some things are spoofable, but some are quite hard to spoof. And it's always good to have a layer of defense where you check where the secret is being used from and in what way it is being used. And using these defenses can already really help in protecting where there's no like two-factor protection available. That's not really something automated systems do. And as such, validating those heuristics can also sort of serve as a proxy for a two-factor kind of thing. And finally, then, secrets management is ever evolving. I mean, with every new thing we create, there's different kinds of ways of leaking secrets as well. And that's always really interesting things. Often, when things get breached, the usual thing that got compromised is some secret. And that's potentially through a developer laptop where they installed some package or whatnot. But if that developer laptop on itself has no access to other things, then, well, there could potentially not be that much of an impact. If, however, that developer laptop contains all kinds of interesting secrets that, have a big scope, for example, and this is another thing that you could think of, giving access mostly to the things that they need rather than providing very broad access tokens. If that's very big in scope on the developer level, then generally speaking, that will be a problem. It will be a slightly smaller problem if it has a limited scope and two, a limited lifetime. And as such, our defenses are also ever evolving, especially if you consider this origin validation and building heuristics, looking at how it's used, etc. But that's unfortunately a step that many organizations don't yet have. And with that, we will all continue to make mistakes. Sometimes things need to get done and they don't get done in the nicest way possible. I know I've seen plenty of things where I was involved where it was not the best way, but it's good to be aware of that this is a problem, that this is complex, And just knowing that and speaking up in your team will win you half the battles regarding secrets management. So with that, if you want to know more about doing this right, then we have the OWASP Secrets Management Cheat Sheet series, the Open CRE, some blogs, OWASP SAM, the secrets detection topic at GitHub. There's lots of resources that can really help you set up a mature secrets management program, or very simply, how do I use this secret safely in my app is also one of the things that's highlighted in here. Finally, I want to thank all of the contributors, testers, people who helped out. This project really wouldn't have been the same without you. And I invite you as well to contribute to the project as well. That can also be in another way. We don't really receive any money for this, right? It's we volunteer as OWASP, but if you have like a secret tool or some cloud where we could host on, where we could integrate, where we could build new challenges, then that's also great. In short, we can really use your help as well. Promote Wrong Secrets, take it for a spin, give us your feedback, file an issue, contact us on OWASP Slack. We have the OWASP Project Wrong Secrets channel open for everyone. You can just fire it up and send me a message, say what you think. And if you're up for it, improve the project, filing a PR, picking up an issue, that would be much appreciated. So with that, this was the presentation, and I'll be happy to take questions if there are any.
Well, are there any questions? I think that is the question at the moment. And looking at the comments in YouTube, I think there are no questions yet, actually. So that answers that question.
I know the YouTube chat has a bit of lag, so giving you just a minute to catch up. Yeah, okay. Cool.
There is indeed a question coming in. Eric Newland asks, Session Chair, could you please, oh wait, that's perhaps for me, point us to where we can find info on the announced upcoming events. They're not on the chapter's website yet. Good question. They will be on our chapter's website before the end of this weekend. And meanwhile, there are, compliments coming into your presentation. So I think that's a good one as well.
Thanks a lot.
That leaves us with the final slide from my deck, I believe. And this is the QR code that should be on your screen right now. Basically, if you do have any feedback, we'd love to hear it, as well as any suggestions for upcoming chapter meetings. So feel free to contact us and fill out the feedback form. And this concludes our meeting. Thank you all for joining in and listening to these presentations. The recordings will remain available, and more information, such as indeed the upcoming events, will be published on either owasp.nl, or if you are looking for more information regarding the OWASP Global AppSec in Lisbon, just go to owasp.org and you'll find anything you'll need there. Hope to see you all again, and the next time in either May or in June for our next chapter meetings. Thank you all and have a nice evening.